that good? Check, check, mic check. Everything good, Kev?
Yep.
All right.
We'll go live here in 1 minute. Looks like you caught somebody doing something on it.
Yes, we did. Yes. It's a fascinating case, actually. Why don't we put Patrick's picture up? Thank you.
30 seconds. Fifteen. 10. 5.
I'm actually going to take some questions at the end, too, because I know you got some. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another weekly briefing. Sheriff Chris Swanson here. Thanks for being patient. For those that waited for that 1 o'clock notification on Wednesday, we obviously had to push that for a little bit. We have a lot of things happening this week, so I wanted to bring you some updates. We have some things to celebrate, some new things that are breaking. So we're going to go fast pace, but there's a lot to cover. You'll see that on this table, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of fraudulent gift cards, but I want to start with Pagic. We broke this story because of an incident that happened in Mount Morris Township where a 12-year-old victim came forward and was taken to Hurley. The sane nurses from Hurley, which are sexual assault nurses, interviewed the victim. Our officers got involved. Ghost was dispatched to the scene, and Lieutenant Kennemer, that you're going to see here in just a second, was the lead in this case. And if you've been following what we've been doing these last several weeks, we found that the suspect, Pagic, a 22-year-old male from West Palm Beach, Florida, actually groomed this individual and started on Instagram and then switched over to Discord. And then from that grooming convinced her that there would be an exchange of property and he would fly up here from West Palm Beach, Florida. He landed on the 20th of February at Detroit Metro Airport. And when he landed here, he drove, rented a car up to Mount Morris. She jumped out of a window, met him at a parking lot at midnight, and took her to a local motel and assaulted. That resulted in a multi-count felony warrant. Lieutenant Kennemer, Sergeant Walker, if you remember, flew down to West Palm Beach, working with Broward County, West Palm County, Hollywood PD. They effected the arrest. He waived extradition, flew back here, and we received him just about a week and a half ago at Metro Airport. Now, the reason I tell you that is because during our investigation, without going into great detail, we learned that there were probably more victims, but we didn't have any names, we didn't know any locations. We just knew that one was going to be potentially in the state of Washington, 1,970 miles away, and another one in the state of Oregon. So we actually used the power and the friends in our media to push that story out, and it reached literally 1.4 million just on our channel. Well, one of those viewers, it comes to find out, was one of the victims from Washington. And that victim was able to go to her local police department and make the complaint that she was assaulted by Pagic. And so just yesterday, Lieutenant Kennemer has connected with that police agency, and we have connected both reports and the evidence we have and the statements they have, and they're going to issue criminal sexual conduct charges against Pagic for what happened out in Washington. And I say that because that's not the only thing. Once we had his phone, Captain Nelson, who is our forensic download expert, downloaded the phone. There's over 2,500 videos on his phone. And of those videos, many of them are child pornography. Videos. And I'm not going to be disturbing enough to tell you the content, but I will tell you that Captain Nelson has to tag and flag these in stages because they're so difficult to see. When you have people work these kinds of cases, and I mentioned it before, chatters and decoys and forensic analysts on phones, they have to try to do this and then go back to live a normal life. But if we don't hold people accountable, then folks like Pagic continue to roam the streets throughout not only this state, but also throughout the country. I think it's also important to know that he was here for 48 hours in the state of Michigan. He landed in Detroit and 48 hours left, but we can only account for 4 hours. What did he do the rest of the time? Well, that's why we're bringing this story back up. We know that we added Oregon and Georgia to our investigation, so I think it's important to know that if people have connections in any of these states, but most importantly locally here in Michigan, that you contact your local police department. You can send us a direct message. You can call 810-257-3422. That's our 24-hour dispatch. But I know if a victim in Washington can see the videos that we post about people like Pajic and come forth, that's exactly what the intent is to do these, is to give people the reason and the belief that those that assaulted them are being held accountable, and we want to hear from you. So that's the update on that. We have more coming. We're working with that agency. Once we get that warrant, we're hoping that we can actually arraign him here on Zoom over there instead of doing the physical transport. We're working that out, but I can promise you this. He's being held accountable there. He's got the 11-account felony warrant here. We have more child pornography charges coming down the pike, so we're taking care of him. That is on Pajic. Any questions from the media? I don't normally do this, but because it's a big deal, we've got 12-5 Mid-Michigan M Live here. Any questions about that, what I just stated? I'll repeat the question and answer it.
What makes this case so unique?
What makes this case so unique is
Fox 66.
because I'm going to tell you, by the time this office in Ghost was dispatched, within 7 days he was in custody and already did it 2 more times in 2 other states that we know of. And because he was in Michigan for 48 hours estimated, we can only account for that short window. What else and who else could he have assaulted? That's why it's a big deal. Any other questions? Our next case I want to talk to you about is from a traffic stop. And I'm going to have Lieutenant Kennemer come up because it's a very complicated case. And if you could take that camera for ours and reduce it down so they can see the table. Is that possible?
We got it.
Okay, all right. We have displayed here cash, we have gift cards, Visa gift cards. This is what we call a criminal enterprise. And the reason we point it out is because there are people watching right now that work at Meijer, Walmart, Menards, Home Depot. They work at big box stores. They work at big companies where people use gift cards. And when we did the traffic stop on Mr. Wright, it was something that we knew was suspicious. We started the investigation, and there's an entire operation that uses this tactic to steal, ready? Millions and millions of dollars per week from those stores, not only in this community, but across the state and around the country. What can we hear and know from this case, and what do we take away from it, Lieutenant?
Well, what they're doing is they're getting these fake credit cards, and they go find vulnerable cashiers, people that they can manipulate, people they can prey on, new cashiers that don't really know the system yet. And they'll try 100 times until they find one cashier that buys into this scam.
Now, how do they get this fraudulent credit card?
They make them.
They make them. So this isn't even real. It's made.
It's made.
And so it's like making a bad check back in the day.
It is.
So they take this fake Visa card.
And there's different ones here, but all of them basically convince the cashier to do the transaction as cash with the instructions.
Even though it doesn't go through.
Even though it doesn't go through.
So they pressure.
And then they get these gift cards. And the interesting thing about these gift cards is, as soon as they get these, most of the time they take them and they go buy additional gift cards, and therefore it becomes untraceable at that point.
So they, what we call money launder.
They money launder.
They gift card launder.
Absolutely.
And so what happens is we found out from surveillance that they send multiple people to these locations when it's really busy, and you know they actually profile what cashiers, like you said, that may not be up to speed or maybe new. And then what they do is when they find that cashier, you can actually see them on phones, and they're telling others, hey, go to this one, go to this one, go to this one. Am I right?
Pretty soon there's a line, and the only time it stops is when the manager comes in and says there's something going on here and something wrong.
So I'm just pulling up these stacks of gift cards, and here's an entire stack of gift cards. How much value is maybe you think in that stack right there?
Well, each one of those little cards is $200.
$200 per card, and there's an entire stack. We have other stacks right here. My point is, you know, this is a grand theft from our stores. And ultimately what happens is when they lose money from the store, whether it's gift card or shoplifting, all of us pay for it. So we got him in custody. He had 106 gift cards. 91 of the 106 obtained by fraudulent K1 scam, which is what you just heard from the lieutenant. The Target store losses, just the Target store he had, was $93,000, one store.
That was over 4 days.
One store, 4 days, $93,000. So we put that story out because I know that people are grinding, they're redlining when they're at these places, and they're trying to work hard, and we have somebody do that. Remember, be conscious. Stop, call a manager. Time is on your side. We say that in law enforcement. Time is on your side. If you feel like someone's trying to pressure you, try to stand your position. Be confident. Say, I need to call my supervisor. Many times they'll bolt because they don't want to be caught, but they're preying on people that aren't catching it, and that's why we got 93,000 for one. How big is this ring?
We've identified 7 people in his ring.
So from the people we've identified in this ring, about how much total loss do you estimate that we've experienced over what period of time?
I'm only going to guess. In the 4 days, it was almost $100,000, millions of dollars.
Between the 7 of them.
Yeah.
This is just 93 between one person. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. That's how fast that can happen. So remember, any gift cards or anything that's not going through, call your supervisor, get somebody else over there. Certainly call 911 loss prevention. Let us get there and put this case together. Anything else? Any takeaways you want to send them?
No, it's just one of these cases where they're preying on people that are vulnerable.
That's right.
And that's what we do. We protect the vulnerable, whether you're a cashier or you're a 12-year-old girl.
So you see the theme here. Thank you so much. We also team up with other people that work with us on a regular basis. And Jamie Gaskin, if you've been around this county at all, you'll know Jamie from United Way. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
He's always been a huge supporter of our Community Care Task Force, our Christmas Spectacular. You give so much back to the community. I'm telling you, you have changed, and whether you're here or not, I'd say this, you have changed the United Way in this community and their image, and you're doing it yet again with our Americorps. So thank you for being here, and tell us why.
Yeah, so we're really excited because this Ignite program that you've started here in Genesee County and has spread throughout the country is really helping folks get an education.
That's right.
While they're here, right? Rather than just sitting around and then getting back in the community and not being ready to be back in community, you're creating an environment to give them an education. Where this is sort of magical is around the Americorps program. So we have folks that are Americorps members that volunteer in the community around lots of different projects, from safety to helping in schools. And this idea is to look at this education space and recruit Americorps volunteers directly from the Ignite program who are going through the program, bettering themselves, so that when they get done, when they're back in community, that some of them will come right back here and work with the other inmates to help them prepare themselves to come back into community. And this is all about preparing folks to be back in our community so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past over and over again.
Which we all make mistakes.
That's what's exciting, right? And we're going to have folks from the Ignite program become Americorps members and come right back to the jail in a proactive way and help other inmates do better. We're going to have other community members as well who have specialties in like financial education or a subject matter expert, and we're going to leverage these federal support, get our own people working again, make them productive members of our community.
So let me break this down too. AmeriCorps, you might see that sounds familiar. That's literally the domestic Peace Corps. Is that a good way to describe it?
It's the federal national service program, and we've got all kinds of projects in the community and other environments, right? Food Corps, opioid Corps, where we're helping people.
Sure.
But this is a unique twist. We think that doing this is going to set the stage for other communities around the United States, because no one's ever done this in this way, and so we're building on the innovation of the Ignite program and adding another innovative piece that we think we're going to be wildly successful with, and other communities are going to want to repeat.
I want to make it clear that this is yet again another bright light that Flint, Genesee County has been seen doing around the country. We just had a conversation with an agency in North Dakota that wanted us to do Ignite. We launched it in Mecklenburg. We have many counties already involved. It literally is changing the cultures of jails. Inmate growth naturally, intensely through education. We go to school 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, hundreds of cases in classes they can choose from, Chromebooks and tablets and VR stations. So to have you commit to us, now mind you, we started this September 8, 2020. We're going on our 2nd year, and what's happened is our data is drawing people in to be partners. Like, you may not have wanted to do this a year ago or 2 years ago when we didn't have any data, but now you see it. You see the benefits. And when they come back, they get paid, don't they? That's the best
Absolutely.
part.
We want people to be back in community,
Yeah.
be productive citizens,
Yeah.
and that way they can take care of the families that they have and don't find themselves in a similar situation. The other thing I'd add, it's also about our teams working together. I've got a great group of people working at United Way.
Yeah.
You've got a great group of people in the Sheriff's Department doing great work.
Thank you.
And they're kind of working together, innovating, thinking about what are all the different
Yeah.
ways we can maximize this opportunity to help these folks
Yeah.
get back into our communities and be productive. And that's what it's all about.
And I can assure you this, the stats we can prove goes on and on. Any kind of post-incarceration education reduces recidivism, which is returning to jails or prisons, by 40%. Imagine if you reduce jail populations across America by 40%, how much money we would all save from the day-to-day operations in jail. Then giving them back into the community where they're better neighbors, better sons and daughters, they're educated, they have jobs. I mean, that's the ultimate. It's been done the same way for 184 years. It's going to take some time to get there, but we're seeing the process. I just checked the stats, 154,000 teaching hours that we've done in this place since September 8, 2020. That's crazy. We got another graduation tomorrow. We got another AG Nestle's coming in. She's going to be the keynote speaker because she wants to see what a commercial driver's license graduation looks like. We've got over, I think, 10 or 15 people. How many people graduating? 10 people graduating from CDL training. Anyhow, whether it's Americorps, our union, trade laborers, whether it's United Way, we have so many partners who are thankful. And Jamie, I just want to say I appreciate you. And I do love your staff. They are legit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to transition into another thing. I know, just stick with us. We have another celebration. Our Sergeant Alexandra Crowley. So come on up. She's been with us, hired in 2012, and she's been really instrumental in helping the Ignite program grow. And you've seen it from the beginning. I mean, that's got to be exciting to see these major partners. Before you took the sergeant's exam and you were a deputy, there's something that caused you to say, you know what, I want to lead in this agency. What was that caused you to want to go from deputy to sergeant?
I think it was talking with my fellow coworkers and them mentioning some of the issues or problems that they saw or maybe that were going to become.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to help. And even being an Ignite, I got a chance because it was Monday through Friday, so I could talk to all the shifts while I was on the floor. And I tried to solve the little problems first, and I thought, well, I'll work on the bigger ones when I get that promotion.
So when you desire a bigger circle of influence, then you got to take the step, and it goes from desire to action, and that's what you did. And now you get to make some decisions that as a deputy you may not have the chance to make, but as a sergeant, you could say, hey, we're going to do it this way. So far, you've been a sergeant for how many weeks? Maybe 6, 7 weeks?
Yeah.
All right. We just had an opportunity to come and swear her out publicly, which we do all the time. But more importantly, the leadership that we're building in this office is for the next 50 years. And I appreciate you. I think you're doing a great job. You're just coming on you're just finished your 10th year. You go on to your 11th year, right? You started in 2012?
Yes.
Yeah, it goes by fast.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So we're going to swear her in as a sergeant for the sheriff's office. You'd stand and face me, raise your right hand, repeat. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States
to uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and I'll faithfully discharge my duties
and I'll faithfully discharge my
as a
duties
sergeant
as a sergeant
for the office of sheriff,
for the office of sheriff,
County of Genesee,
County of
State of
Genesee,
Michigan,
State of
to
Michigan,
the best of my ability.
to the best
So help
of
me
my
God.
ability. So help me God.
Congratulations, Sergeant Crowley! Thank you so much. That's for all her family that can't be here, but we'd like to do that because I think that's a historic moment, especially not for our office, but also for those families around the world. And we do have family around the world. I also want to highlight, we're almost done, our pizza party extravaganza. It came to me in February that March was Reading Month across the country. So we decided to launch the Sheriff Swanson Pizza Party Spectacular and the extravaganza, and we put it out to all the principals, and we had over 30 schools say, hey, we want to be a part of it. And really what it is, it's kids that are logging pages read. And whatever school wins the most pages read for the month of March, they get a full pizza party that's brought in by the sheriff's office. We bring them ice cream for the whole school. We bring them inflatables from Fantastic Inflatables. We also pay the principal, I give her or him $1,000 cash. And they have to use it on their staff. And so we make it a big deal. And it's been crazy competitive. So we also have some things for our second and third place. We have to the end of this week to get our final numbers. But let me just show you this stat. Dye Elementary is just under 1 million pages read in 1 month. Rankin just about 600,000. Torrey Hill, Dillon, Randall's. But all the schools, I think it's really important that you may not have been in the top 5, but there are schools that read 50, 60, 70,000 pages, and the principals got involved. Something's coming for you too. I promise you this. I'm not going to let you go with nothing. But for our top schools and all those that participated, Dye is in the lead. They may cross that 1 million mark. They have till Friday to do that. But we almost topped 3 million pages read in 1 month. And that's crazy. And that's just launching it 2 weeks before. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it. We'll have an update. And we're going to launch the winner. Now, this is key because something big is happening next week, and it will be done. But next week on April the 12th, 2022, if you don't know, it's National Education and Sharing Day. Now, Rebbe, R-E-B-B-I, is from New York, and he is responsible, as many rabbis around the country will tell you, on really pushing forth the American Jewish movement in today's world. He died in the 90s, but he is revered. And on that day is his birthday. And so they make it a special day. And I was honored by our local rabbi, Weingarten, and his son, Mati, that they wanted to do something special here in the front lawn of the jail because of what we're doing with Ignite. They see education. It was a big deal to Rebbe, and it was a big deal to us, and they want us to make that day a special day. So we are going to have our Education Day, our Sharing Day proclamation read right here on the front steps of the jail, which is going to be the 12th of April, which is a Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We're going to have a lot of our Jewish friends here, but we're also going to have kids from the winning school here, and that's where we're giving the $1,000, and that's when we're giving the award, and that's where we're going to celebrate education. It can't be any better than that. That's a big deal. That's April the 12th. It's next week. So we're going to get our data in, announce the winners, but you can already see who might be, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. We've got a couple school districts in there, but we're going to celebrate everybody, and it's important that we do that. The last thing I'm going to end on is, it's not a pleasant topic, but I know that the media is here for the question about a video that has been pushed out referencing an arrest at Hurley Hospital. And I promise you this, every use of force that we have that is either in the jail or on the road, we do a review. And there was nobody injured when it comes to what happened with deadly force or tased or sprayed. But an incident did happen, and there was a forcible, and there was a video, and it is unpleasant. And we have actually met with the family, which is the reason why we were late. We met with our community leaders from the Rising Star Church, from Pastor Hawkins, John L. Allen. These are our community voices and hearts. These are county ambassadors. These are people from our Nation of Islam friends and people that are in the community, because law enforcement has to be different. And we made a claim on the parking lot and Target back in 2020 that we're going to do things different. And this is part of that evolution. So we are in process of doing a full investigation with Flint Township, Walmart, Hurley Hospital. We're only T-minus 48 hours from us knowing about it, but I can promise you this. We're going to find out what happened, what was right, what we could do different, how we move on from here. But we just had a room full of folks that some time ago that would have never happened. And there was some spirited discussion that was put out there from the undersheriff to the major to the captains, the lieutenants. We had Sergeant Crowley there. We had the whole command staff there that's working right now so we can become better. So that may generate some questions from the media, but I don't have all the answers, but I promise you this, if you know anything about Sheriff Swanson, good, bad, or different, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to be transparent. Any questions?
Have you seen the video?
I have. The question is, have I seen the video? Yes. It's about 9 minutes long. Yes.
And it appears to show maybe a sheriff's deputy, I'm not sure of what position
Yes.
the individual is, punching at this individual. Is that a procedure or something that happens when police are arresting someone?
So the question is, were there hand strikes and punches? And the answer to that is yes on the video. And all law enforcement across Michigan and across the country, for that matter, operate what's called the force continuum. And it's subject response and officer response. And as that force continuum goes up, so does the response of the officer, from literally verbal commands to deadly force. And it's the responsibility of the officer or the deputy that as that sliding scale happens, they use the force enough to contain the situation, which means to settle where they are, to put somebody in custody, to calm the situation. And as soon as that force is relieved, then we slide back down. And that does include hand strikes. And as I mentioned, when you see the video, there was no chokeholds, there was no OC spray, no taser, but people in this profession have tools that we have to use in order to maintain order, law and order. And again, the public doesn't see that as much as they see all the positive stuff we're doing. So when they do see it, it is disturbing, but it's still worthy of investigation, and that's why we are there. We've met with the family, we've met with the subject, Mr. Fleming. We're working with Hurley and Walmart, and Flint Township was here. But yes, that is a force that can be used. The question in this investigation is, was it appropriate force used for the force being used by the subject? And that's where we are right now.
Just going off that too, I mean, watching the video, initial reaction, do you believe that it was appropriate considering that they were saying he wasn't listening, he was being, trying to resist arrest, but in the video, he's on the ground. He can't move. Do you believe initially seeing that video, it was appropriate or was it inappropriate, initial reaction?
So yes, he was on the ground, and yes, there was an altercation. The question is hands underneath, not complying, hands behind the back. That is, and we do this in jail all the time when it comes to transporting. The question is, all of that 9 minutes, at what point was force used and how the response was? So it very well could have been absolutely appropriate to use hand strikes versus a taser. And if that action of the subject allowed that confrontation to be resolved, then whatever force, and that's the question we just mentioned with the family, we're going to find out, and that's part of the investigation. I think, I saw one officer actually had their taser out and put it back. Remember, these decisions are being made at a micro level, and so a lot of times, review can teach us what we could have done different, but that's what we're doing right now. This is going to take a couple weeks, but we have a lot of people involved. But yes, I saw the same video you saw, and that's what has caught our attention.
And I got to last week, MSP also had a similar incident where they used hand strikes against someone that was being arrested. I mean, this is clearly back-to-back situations with on two different county levels. Right. You all work together very closely.
Right.
I mean, what does this say? This has been an ongoing conversation for years now about abuse against people of color. Any comment to, all of these issues that are clearly really not settling with the public who is supposed to trust all of our officers?
So the question is, reference the situations, and apparently MSP had one, I don't know what you're talking about, but there is a big difference between affecting an arrest and abuse of power. And I think that's the job of law enforcement, community, determine what is excessive force that's not allowed and what is the right force to affect the arrest. And if you look at what law enforcement is, we have a unique profession that we go from verbal commands, and we have the authority by the people to use deadly force. And those things happen. If you can look around the country, those things happen. And that sliding scale is so important. That's why I always go back to, if it fits the force continuum and the actions of both parties fit, those are the rules that we have to operate under. When I say we, law enforcement, it's when we go outside that protection of the rules, that's where things can become abusive, excessive, even criminal or civil.
And just going off that too, you had a conversation with another one of our ABC 12 reporters talking about procedure and protocol. It was found out after the fact that he did pay for those items from Walmart.
Correct.
Why isn't it part of procedure to ask beforehand before the arrest is made?
So the question is about the arrest that happened in Flint Township based on a complaint that Walmart called and made a 911 complaint. Normally I'd say you got to call Flint Township on that, but knowing that we're great partners and they were here at the meeting, the information that Walmart gave 911, which ultimately went to Flint Township, was bad information. That we can't undo. It is Flint Township's position and their responsibility to determine how their officer reacted in that moment. The sheriff's office didn't get involved till way after, and it was only because Hurley medical staff said, we need this patient to do this. And of course, out of HIPAA, I got to be cautious of using what this was, but ultimately led to the video that you speak of.
And I think I know the answer, but as you look into this, is that deputy or that officer from your department who was hand striking, I'm assuming that they're still working.
Correct. Yep. And that deputy, I will tell you, was there he's a paramedic deputy. He responded by taking an 87-year-old stroke patient from Mount Morris to the hospital, and just happened to be passing by, heard the altercation, heard the cry for help, and responded. Had no idea what's happened in Flint Township, had no idea about what happened at Walmart, zero, just responded to what was said. And of course, there's reports generated from our office, from Hurley, there's video, which is all the reason why when you deal with these, it's not as pleasant as dealing with a reading contest or United Way, but it's still part of our job. If you look at any police car that's here that has a sheriff star in Genesee County, it says protect, serve, and unify. And part of that unity message is being transparent and being open to the community. When we do right, explain what we did. If we did wrong, to correct it. Thank you.
What's the status on your officer that got arrested for driving under the influence? What's the
Right.
status?
The sergeant, the question is, what's the status of the sergeant that was arrested for drunk driving? That case is still pending. It's in the courts. She is still operating. She doesn't have a privilege to county vehicles. She has been placed, and she's a supervisor in the jail. Again, I want to reiterate that this sergeant has had 14 years of service, and she was disciplined with 160 hours of unpaid suspension. She was put forth in education training, and she also has the criminal side of it, but we operate under the collective bargaining agreement, and that discipline was appropriate for that offense. But the bottom line is she's not driving a county vehicle.
So just to clarify, she's no longer on suspension.
Correct. She served her suspension, 160 unpaid hours, which is 1 full month, so it's a 1/12 of her pay that was taken.
Emotions, I'm just curious about how, some guy or gal losing their mind, someone responds to the call. What type of training does officers get? I've always been curious about how do they keep their emotions out of a situation?
Yeah.
Is there some training for that, or?
So the question is, how do officers across America remain emotionally numb to whatever they're going to in order to make an objective decision? And I'll be honest, it's very difficult. You have an officer that comes from a traumatic medical scene that now responds to another police call. You have people that have home life. We all have home life. We have things that affect us on our job in the media. Something, you could have got a text an hour before this meeting, and it affects the way you deal with people. But the training we have, obviously we have basic police academy, but those de-escalation conversations are nonstop. And so we train nonstop here for our jail. We have a 160 school, which is 1 full month, 160 hours, where we have a whole litany of topics: how to de-escalate inmates, how to bring them in, how to handcuff, how to look for medical issues, how to treat, how to respond, suicide. So that's for the jail deputies. For those that are done with the 160, every year there's 20 hours of additional training. For our patrol deputies and our patrol sergeants, we have a whole additional training that was launched in 2020 that has to be done in a 2-year period, and it's 80 hours of training that involves race relations, cultural diversity, force continuum that I just mentioned, how to de-escalate situation, verbal judo. Those are nonstop. But I think, to your point, we have to control our emotions. That's why we get paid to do what we do. But you can't remove emotion from everything you're going on. And it's a great, noble profession, but it's also a very challenging one. And people talk about this being a difficult time of being in law enforcement. I think it's the best time to be in law enforcement because we're getting better, and that's part of the police evolution talk that not only do I preach here, but also across the country. We are going to get better. Celebrate, which I just told the family, celebrate the micro victories that we've done in this community. We certainly are far from ever being where we need to be, but we're on the right track instead of going backwards. I consider that a victory.
This is a little off the beaten path. You guys could be doing anything you want.
Right.
You could be sitting up in there and just having your men and fine men and women just going out throwing people away, in the jail. What motivates people such as yourself?
That's a great question.
And your colleagues that you work with? What's your motivation?
Well, I think if you ask people that are in public service during emergency situations, whether it's military, police, fire, EMS, ER doctors and nurses, when people's lives are falling apart, you'll find that the people that serve the best want to be there. I wish we could say it was because of A, B, and C, but I think it's insider DNA. I think when you look at any public servant, regardless of what things may have happened that shed some negativity on any of those professions, if you look at the heart of the person, we love people, and we love, in crisis, serving them. And I don't know if there's anything other than what I do that I would like as more than I do right now. That's the driving force, and they do it 25, 30 years in a row. I call it being deployed in battle every day. And you have deputies, just recently we have had deputies, our paramedic deputies we talk about, they answer 25,000 medicals a year. And they're picking up overdoses and cardiac arrests and babies that aren't breathing and car accidents and shootings. The weekend shooting we had, you know how many county medics were there on that shooting? And this is something we do on an everyday basis. I just think we're just prepared to see trauma, and we have a heart to put people's lives back together.
So you can't fake it just for a paycheck, obviously.
Oh, absolutely not. Sometimes there's people made to call 911, and then there's people that are 911. So with that, thank you so much. We covered a lot. It's a very, very detailed weekly briefing, and we have more stories coming to you very shortly. So thank you so much. Be safe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
You did a great job handling those questions, tough questions.
Yes, but it must be done. Not every day is